Have you ever really stopped to think about who actually owns your social media presence? All those posts, the pictures, the connections you've built, you create all that value. But really, it's just a handful of massive companies that are profiting from it. So today, we're going to dig into a pretty radical new idea. What if you, the user, were also the owner? Seriously, just imagine this for a second. What if every single upvote you got on a platform like Reddit wasn't just for some feel-good karma points, but actually translated into real, spendable money? And I'm not talking about some other user tipping you. I mean the platform itself, rewarding you for what you bring to the table. It might sound like a pipe dream, but it's the core idea behind a whole new wave of online communities.
All right, so to really get this, let's first break down the fundamental issues with the social media that most of us use every single day. The old school centralized model, where one company is in charge of everything, it has some pretty significant drawbacks. When you look at the research, a few key problems pop up again and again. First, there's a basic inequity, right? We, the users, generate billions of dollars in value, but we don't see a dime of that. We also have basically zero control over our own data. It gets used, sold, sometimes even leaked, all without our real consent. Then there's censorship, where content can just be zapped by a central authority, and you might not even get a clear reason why. And of course, these places can become breeding grounds for fake news. The bottom line is, the current system puts all the power and all the profit in the hands of the platform, not the people actually creating the value. So what's the alternative? Well, this brings us to a completely different way of building an online world. And it's all powered by blockchain technology. It's called a DAO. Okay, DAOC. It stands for Decentralized Autonomous Online Community, which is a mouthful, I know. But the idea behind it is incredibly powerful. Just picture an online community with no single boss, no CEO calling all the shots. The rules aren't buried in some ridiculously long terms of service document that nobody ever reads. They're actually coded transparently right onto a blockchain. What that means is the community is governed by its own members, for its own members. So let's make this super concrete. Let's compare a platform we all know, Reddit, with a real-world DAO called Steemit. On Reddit, one central company is in charge. On Steemit, it's run by the members. On Reddit, any rewards you get like Reddit Gold come from other users. On Steemit, the platform itself rewards you with valuable tokens. But here's the biggest shift: power. On Reddit, power is all about authority, being a moderator. On Steemit, your influence is directly tied to your stake in the platform. It just fundamentally changes who's in charge.
So how in the world do these new communities actually create value and get people to participate? I mean, it's not just about handing out free money. There's a really sophisticated engine working under the hood here.
Researchers have basically pinpointed three core, interconnected value drivers that make these communities tick. It all starts with what they call a reputation value system. That's followed by true data ownership. And finally, it's all held together by a robust verification and tracking mechanism. Let's break these down one by one. So first up, this reputation value system. In these communities, your reputation isn't just some meaningless score. It's directly linked to platform tokens that have real economic value. The more you contribute, the more your reputation grows, and the more valuable tokens you earn. And this creates this amazing collective mindset, which is just captured perfectly by this quote from a Steemit member. Users literally feel like they're all part of a startup, working together to make the platform more valuable because they all have a real stake in its success. The second driver is a total game changer: data ownership. See, on a blockchain, your content isn't being stored on some company's private server somewhere. It's recorded on a distributed public ledger. And what that means is that you, the creator, you own your data. You have the control, not the platform. This just completely flips the traditional model on its head. And the final piece of this puzzle is verification and tracking. Because every single post is timestamped and permanently recorded on the blockchain, it becomes this amazing tool for proving originality. This unchangeable record protects a creator's intellectual property. It's like a built-in mechanism to prove who created what and when they did it, which, as you know, solves a massive problem on the internet today. But beyond all the tech, what's truly fascinating is the psychological shift this creates. These value drivers don't just change the rules of the game, they change how users actually feel about their community and their place in it. It all boils down to this really powerful concept called psychological ownership. This is that feeling you get when you stop being just a user on someone else's platform and you start to feel like the community is genuinely yours. The entire system we've been talking about is designed to create this feeling.
So how do they do it? Let's go back to our Reddit versus Steemit comparison. On Reddit, it's basically one user, one vote. Your influence is tied to your account. Simple enough. But on Steemit, it's one share, one vote. Your influence, the actual weight of your upvote, is directly proportional to your stake in the community. The more you've invested and earned, the more powerful your voice becomes. This whole system is built on what researchers call share capital. So think of the tokens you earn not just as points or even money, but as actual shares in the platform, kind of like owning stock in a company. These shares give you real rights, a claim on the earnings, a vote on big decisions, and access to information. It transforms you from just being a user into being a part owner. And that is the core idea right there. When you hold this share capital, you have a real, tangible stake in the future of the community. And that stake is what fosters that deep feeling of psychological ownership. It's what motivates you to contribute and to care for the platform because, in a very real sense, it is your community. Now, this all sounds incredibly promising, right? But let's be real, it is far from a perfect digital utopia. This new model comes with its own set of very, very serious challenges that we absolutely cannot ignore. Building a decentralized world is really, really hard. For starters, scalability is a huge issue. Blockchains can be painfully slow and really struggle with the sheer volume of a global social network. They're also big targets for hackers. You might remember the infamous DAO attack that saw $60 million just vanish. Spam is still a problem, and then there are deeper questions about motivation, like could financial rewards actually kill the intrinsic joy and passion people have for creating? And finally, let's not forget, some blockchains consume a staggering amount of energy, which raises some very serious environmental concerns. So, where does all this leave us? Well, this whole model of decentralized, user-owned communities is still in its infancy. It's definitely grappling with some immense technical and social challenges. But it forces us to ask a really profound question. Will we one day truly own our digital lives? The answer isn't clear yet, but for the very first time, the technology to maybe make that happen is finally here.